all ages. We invest in ideas that help people grow beyond what the core system can provide. New extracurriculars, creative, interdisciplinary learning, and pilot programs that later scale district-wide. This year, we're excited to celebrate our 10th anniversary. Over the past decade, SEF has provided over $260,000 in grants to Scituate teachers and administrators, PTOs, and local community nonprofits. Recent grantees include the Scituate Town Library and Library Foundation, South Shore Peer Recovery, the Cyber Sailors Robotics Team, the Commission on Disability, the Cushing School, and Scituate High School's IXL program. With your purchase of your ticket tonight, you help ensure that worthy organizations continue to receive the funding that ensures lifelong learning remains a top priority in Scituate. We're thrilled to have you here with us tonight to enjoy personal stories from 7 community members. But before we jump into that, we're going to start the evening with opening remarks from one of SEF's co-founders, Jen Morrison. Jen and her husband, Chris, moved to Scituate 22 years ago. They have 2 boys who graduated from Scituate High School and are now in college. Jen is passionate about making things better, and her next big dream project is to launch a self-sustaining animal sanctuary with wellness offerings in the community. It's in the initial stages, so if you're interested in learning more, reach out to her. Please welcome Jen Morrison.
It's really hard to believe that it's only been 10 years since we launched Scituate Education Foundation. So we thought that it would be a good time tonight to talk about how it all began. And really from my perspective, who it began with. See, I only wanted to talk tonight to honor my parents. So this story, like most, does not really follow a direct line, so stay with me. It starts with my mom. She was a teacher. And more than that, she was the kind of person who believed deeply that if you see something that isn't right, you don't complain about it, you try and fix it. I can picture it clearly. It was 2009. My boys and my husband were visiting my parents in Delaware. Cody was 5, Tyler was 2, and we were catching my parents up on life in Scituate. And it started to be that I was grumbling about something. It wasn't about education, it wasn't about the teachers, and I honestly can't even remember what I was kind of complaining about. What I really do remember is that my mom stopped and said, "Look at me. Do not complain about something unless you're willing to try and do something about it." See, both my parents instilled in me from a young age that I could do anything I set my mind to. And there really is kind of a strange confidence that comes from that kind of unconditional love. So not long after that conversation, I saw a posting for the Scituate Economic Development Commission. With my background in finance and project management, I figured, okay, if I'm going to complain less, I should show up more. I applied and was selected. So my corporate career taught me how to improve any process with first understanding it. And to do that, you ask a lot of questions. So the first question, what is our town budget? Well, when you look at it, the largest part by far goes to the schools, about 2/3 of our town budget. So then I said, okay, let's start looking at our school buildings. And I asked to tour them, and I was told no one had ever asked to do that before. So what I really learned, especially when seeing the old Gates Middle School, was shocking. I won't relive here how bad it was, but the bottom line, the 100-year-old building needed help. Great teachers and students were being asked to spend a majority of their day in terrible conditions. So I pivoted to focus on advocating for a new middle school. And I'll be honest, it wasn't easy, but luckily a lot of great people got involved. People were passionate, most were kind, some not so much, but this isn't the story of the new middle school. But that was the start to SEF's story. See, I kept asking questions. I kept doing research, and I kept looking around at the other towns around us, and I learned something kind of shocking. Every surrounding town to Scituate has an education foundation. We were the only town on the South Shore that did not. So in that vacuum of no overarching town-focused education group, focus and fundraising fell to the PTOs. Those PTOs grew, and that's fine for when you're in that individual school where your PTO is. And I realize some of you here tonight may not realize that the old Gates School only had 7th and 8th grade in it. So you can see when your oldest got to 7th grade and your eyes were open to how bad the building was, it was almost time for you to move on. So I do believe that if Scituate had SEF 30, 40 years ago, our kids would not have been sitting in rooms back then that when it rained, it came in on them. So we did start to understand why Gates got so bad. And once we had the final vote to pass it, after 6 years of work, I went back to those that had said to me at the time, I really don't want to get involved with the middle school effort, but if you ever start an education foundation, please call me. See, a group of us really knew that we had to do something for our town. And the momentum of seeing that we were successful in passing 3 town votes for a new school, we had wind in our sail. The first co-founder with me was Katina Bentley. Katina is an amazing person, kind, creative, and our skills were a great balance to each other. Our kids went to different elementary schools, so our network in town was different. And Katina, among many things, was also part of a group called 12 Women Who Care. She brought in Tracy Shepard from that group. Another early founder, Heather Dillon, and I met when I was selling one of my kids' Bulldog sweaters to her, and we started talking. Her kids went to Jenkins, mine went to Hatherley. We talked about the PTOs, and she shared that Jenkins PTO raised $60,000 that year, and I knew none of the other PTOs even came close. A close friend of mine introduced me to her friend's daughter, Gabby Spenning. We had coffee at Lucky Finn, quickly hit it off, and now we had real marketing talent. So we had the beginnings of a great group, and at the start we knew some things just had to happen, like creating a website, creating a logo, the 501c3 application. But we also realized we had an opportunity to do some things different, dare I say better, than the other towns around us. See, all the other towns' education foundations focus on K to 12, kindergarten to grade 12. And we kind of sat back and said, education doesn't start in kindergarten, and it certainly doesn't end when you graduate high school. So we thought we would do it a little differently, and we decided to focus on education for all ages, 0 to 100, something for everyone. So SEF was really never about one person. It took a group of incredible humans to build something bigger than any of us. And we wanted to set it up to last. So I remember Katina and I looked at each other at one point and said, we kind of need to find us like 10 years younger. So we decided to go to the preschool PTO meetings. And Emily Matthews and Lauren Shea were 2 of the powerhouse women that got involved then, and their reach was huge. There's so many others, and I would really love to recognize everyone by name that has been involved over the last 10 years. Any level with any fundraiser, board, committee, this great event, Seaside Stories, since we started SEF 10 years ago, please know you are the reason we have this organization, and our community has this nonprofit to focus on education and innovative ideas for all. And truly, it was the best group of people I have ever worked with. Each bringing their own strengths, ideas, and connections to make it a reality. We really had fun. When my mom passed away in 2011, I read a book afterwards called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. This book is amazing. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest it. It's about how our stories are connected and how each of those stories and impacts have ripple effects on other people. And sometimes those ripple effects have an impact on people you don't even get to meet. So most of you here tonight have never met my mom, but her story as a teacher, a great mom, and one that always tried to make things better instead of complaining, her story had a ripple effect into why SCF is here today. One comment in the living room became a conversation. That conversation became action. That action became ripples, and here we are, years later. So in 2016, when SCF officially launched, we had these founder hats. If you're one of the first to donate over $100, you got a limited edition hat. Then we decided to photograph them around town, even around the world. And now tonight, you get an opportunity to get another hat, limited edition, and all you have to do is donate over $50, one of the new hats. But really, if you can, any donation will go to providing more educational grants in our community. The current board are doing amazing things, but besides donations of time, of money, SCF also needs donations of your time. So please consider getting involved yourself or thinking of someone else that you think would want to get involved. And know that at any level, it's a wonderful thing to do for our community. I promise you will have fun, and you never know the ripples your involvement will create. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. And now I'm so pleased to welcome our Seaside Stories 2026 host and MC, Mr. Ryan Beatty. Ryan's reputation as a beloved member of the Scituate Public Schools precedes him, especially for those of us with middle schoolers. But for those of you who don't yet know him, Ryan has been a member of the Scituate community since 2007. He started his role as an English teacher at the Scituate High School before becoming principal of Gates Middle School in 2018. Last spring, Ryan was named the Massachusetts Middle School Principal of the Year. In his off time, he enjoys reading, cooking, and running, but his favorite pastime is spending quality time with his 4-year-old rescue dog, Miss Mabel.
Good evening and welcome to the Scituate Education Foundation's Seaside Stories. Thank you so much for showing up tonight to support this incredible event. I am honored to serve as the MC, and I'm so grateful for the support that the Scituate Education Foundation has provided to our community for the past 10 years. My co-host this evening is Miss Mabel. She is also very excited to be here this evening. She has promised to behave like the little lady she is. Tonight, our storytellers come from all around our community, and they have worked so hard over the past month to be ready for tonight, during which time they have been guided by the amazing professional storytelling coach, Andrea Love. We know that you will enjoy the show, so let's get the evening going. I have the pleasure to introduce our first storyteller, Kevin Weaver. Kevin works in new technology, including augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence, and is currently walking around the world in miles. He has finished 21,000 miles and has about a year and a half to go. He is keenly interested in the environment and the history that makes Scituate special, as well as the good, kind, and genuine people. Kevin loves his wife for 40 years, but there are moments when even the greatest love can be tested.
So I've been ruminating stories from my life that may be of interest to this audience group. You be the judge. First story that occurred to me was that I was in a knife fight in Las Vegas. It was the classic parry and thrust event. And I dismissed that story on the grounds that we no longer fight with knives. That was a sort of middle-aged event. So then it dawned on me to tell a story about how somebody leveled a machine gun upon me in Caracas with the intent to kill. And I dismissed that story because I thought Venezuela's been in a zeitgeist quite a bit over the last few months, so I let that one go. And then I thought, I have it. I was in a hijacking flying from Lisbon to Madeira. And as I ruminated that story, I was thinking, oh my God, I can barely believe the story, so how could I expect you to? So finally, I came to the story that I hope you like, and it is that my wife and I were robbed at gunpoint in New York City. To begin, I would ask you to consider the most idyllic holiday season you could possibly imagine. Wreaths on every door, candles in every window. Christmas carols going off, snow drifting from the sky. Chaucer being read in the living room. Cocoa and cinnamon in the air. That exact scene was transpiring when my wife and I lived in Manhattan. And so we were invited to a party during this holiday season. And I should tell you that Alec Baldwin once told me never drop names. But the party was at Liza Minnelli's house. So needless to say, my wife and I got dressed to the nines. I bought a brand new Armani suit. I buffed my shoes like nobody's business. I wore a cravat that I thought was handsome. I got my hair short. My wife, oh my God, an evening dress that was amazing, replete with jewelry, diamond earrings. Her hair had never been better. Gorgeous. To finish her outfit, she was wearing a black cape and red high heels. So there we are, we're in the ready. We go downstairs, we get in the cab, we shoot across Central Park, we get to the appointed apartment. We go up in the elevator, and as the elevator doors open, there's a 10-foot high, 6-foot wide, original Andy Warhol painting of Liza. We knew we were at the right address. So we went inside and we co-boarded for a couple of hours. I have to tell you, the hors d'oeuvres were amazing. The wine and the cocktails were ridiculous. Conversation was tremendous. We had a great time. So after the party, we go downstairs, get in the cab, we shoot across Central Park, and we get to our address on 88th Street between West End and Riverside. For those of you who may be geo-mapping, it's under the shadow of the Grant tomb overlooking the Hudson River. And so as we get out of the car, I should tell you that we are full of gaiety and cocktails and laughter, and we're arm in arm walking down the street. And I noticed from a distance, about 100 feet away, a man coming at us, and I think in my mind's eye, he looks a little scarce. So I say to my wife, would you get on the inside, because it would appear that this man's going to pass us on the outside. She looked at me and she said, you're crazy. I said, okay. Here she is on the inside. And lo and behold, according to script, he stops right in front of us 10 feet, takes out a gun. And then the scariest thing happened. He said, give me your money. Oh my God. The next thing I know, my wife has Spider-Woman up the side of a building, crossed 4 brownstones down the street, and come back down and shot off in the opposite direction, running in a zigzag pattern to avoid the would-be gunfire. Her cape is straight up. If the wing of a plane, a high heel flies off, did not matter. It did not impede her speed at all whatsoever. She was just flying. She goes into a doorman building, Later on, I find out that she's pushing the doorman out. But once he learned that there was a gun involved, he wanted nothing to do with the fracas. So there I am, I'm left with the perpetrator. I see my wife is safely inside. And I turn around and I have a BDI moment with the man with the gun. And I say, "Can you believe that shit?" And he spoke again. He said, "I hate people." I say, "Clearly we're terrified." I now have my arms in the air. And I said, "I'm just going to turn around and walk away." And as I do that, I think to myself, I'll only hear bang, or nothing. But out of the corner of my eye, I see him crossing the street, going down the sidewalk and around the corner. And epically, in my dream sense, I see him like Gozer, going after his next prey on all fours. It's just this horrifying feeling I have. So to conclude, who knew that my wife's daring getaway saved my life that day? Thank you.
I'm now pleased to introduce Jim Canavan. Originally from Cambridge, Jim and his wife have lived in Scituate for about 8 years. Jim has an impressive resume of leadership in state and local government, but especially in the nonprofit sector. Since moving to Scituate, Jim has served on the town's Coastal Advisory Board and currently serves as chair as the Scituate West Cork Sister City Committee, as a board member and past chair of the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail, and as a board member of the South Shore Arts Center. Jim's wife, Mary Grant, is president of the Massachusetts College of Art and Design, so Jim also serves as a trailing spouse, a role he cherishes. Jim is also a Vietnam veteran.
The airport of Dakar, Senegal that night was a crazy riot of noise and chatter in a language we didn't understand and odors we had never smelled before. We managed to get through the chaos of the airport terminal, get into our cars and get on our way. So what were we doing in Dakar, Senegal? My wife, Mary Grant, that's right, she let me keep my own name. We're invited by the McCormick Institute at UMass Boston to join them on a USAID mission to the Université Gaston Berger in Saint Louis, Senegal. This is in the northern reaches of Senegal, almost to Mauritania. The things you remember are kind of funny. We were driving from Dakar to Senegal a couple of days later and still getting our bearings. We were in equatorial Africa in the middle of our winter, but not winter there. And as we were driving out of Dakar, we passed what must have been a garbage dump. It was this pile of garbage. It had to be 30 feet high and a couple of 100 yards long. Standing on the sidewalk in front of all this garbage was a beautiful African woman wearing a sleeveless red dress, as if she might have been waiting for a bus. And it dawned on us then, or at least on me, that we really were in a developing country that was trying desperately to find its way into the modern world after centuries of colonialism and slavery. And we were there to help. We found our way up to Saint Louis and went directly to the village, outside the University, Gaston Berger. The idea was to help this emerging democracy with some construction projects, some community development, and Mary's job, at the time she was the chief operating officer at UMass Online, her job was to introduce the faculty of the university to distance education And at that time, UMass Online was leading the way. So we spent a few days in the village, and if you can picture this, it's sub-Saharan Africa. Everything is sandy and dusty, but this village is immaculate. And in the middle of the village is what they call the palaver tree, a wide-spreading tree that was considered the courthouse of the village. But on this day, hanging from one of the limbs was what looked like a delicatessen scale with a big dial and a white basin. And the women were weighing their babies in the scale on the palaver tree. The chief came out to greet us. He must have been 6'7", dark-skinned, wearing a purple tunic garment called a bubu that went from his neck to his ankles. And he welcomed us in the native language Wolof. And the Wolof was then translated to French, which was then translated to English. We knew we were going to be in for some long meetings. That was how it was going to go. But the very first meeting we attended under the tree, two young men who had been acting as liaison to the university spoke to us in Wolof. They addressed the Americans directly in Wolof. And after translation, the French translator kind of touched his heart when he heard what they said. They were thanking us and expressing their admiration for the Americans coming to a Muslim country so soon after 9/11. And it touched us, it touched us. The anti-Muslim fervor in this country was raging at the time, understandably. So we spent the week under the spreading palaver tree, discussing some of the projects, the construction project, how we could unite the university with the village, and went on and on and on. And Mary and I and some of our colleagues occasionally would say, "Where are the women?" Because all the meetings were only men. Eventually, the women came to the meetings, and the contractor who was building the community center, that was the construction project, rolled out the plans for the women to see. The community center was designed to hold a space for the women to make the garments that they sold in Dakar at the marché, at the market. But the women dyed these garments before they shipped them out. What the women pointed out to the men, finally, was that the dyes they used gave off toxic fumes. They needed an outdoor space, not an enclosed space. So on the spot, the design for the community center changed. And it included now an outdoor sheltered space for the women to dye their garments. These meetings went on for a couple of days, but when Mary was getting acquainted with the university, we broke off from a meeting one afternoon to get her classroom ready for the lecture she would deliver to the faculty about distance education using satellites. And there would be a link up to UMass Boston. So Mary and I went over to prepare the classroom. Of course, I was no help. I didn't know anything about this either. But she got everything ready. She had translators ready to go. And the faculty came in, filed in their finest regalia, took their seats around a big U-shaped table, and got ready for Mary's lecture. Before Mary could begin, the women from the village started to file into the classroom. And none of them had been on the campus before this, but they wanted to hear the American woman. Mary looked at me because she had this very technical lecture with the faculty. She kind of shrugged her shoulders. And I said, I don't know what you're going to do. She ad-libbed the lecture on the spot. She would speak for 30 seconds or 45 seconds. The Wolof translator would speak for 5 or 6 minutes. And everybody would laugh. And the lecture went like that for about a half hour. When it was over, Mary and I stood to the side of the door to the classroom as people filed out. And as the women filed out, they all murmured something to Mary. And finally, the last person out of the room was the oldest woman in the room. And she took Mary's hands in both of hers. And she said, Sonyu Jigid Naga. our translator didn't wait for the French translation. What he said was, "You are our sister." Well, that touched us. A couple of days later, we had concluded our business. We thought it was a successful trip, and we had fallen in love with these people. We were getting the cars ready to head back to Dakar, to head back home. And the chief came out, followed by quite a retinue of people. Most of the village came up with the chief. And there he is, 6'7". Mary and I are standing right in front of him. He encircles us in this wingspan. Let's see if I get this right. He said, "Medak Sial, Len Jaheen Medi Day." What he said was, "Because of you, Len will be right."
Next up, we have Bruce Marshman. Bruce Marshman has spent 37 years in public education, 4 years in Pennsylvania, and 33 years in Massachusetts. He started in Norwell, working his way up to be an assistant principal. He then became a principal at Plymouth Carver and then Plymouth North. He returned to Norwell as principal and retired from there. In his retirement, he has found joy in volunteering. He volunteers at the Scituate Senior Center and Food Pantry. He is also a member of the school building committee for the new elementary school here in town, and he is the community representative on Scituate High School's school board.
Serendipity. Finding something good when you weren't even looking for it. This is the story that I will be telling you tonight. I'm going way back. I'm a junior at Lafayette College in Eastern Pennsylvania and a member of the Theta Delta Chi fraternity. It's a Saturday, nothing much going on campus, but the following weekend, there's a football game, and the fraternities are going to have open houses, and 5 of them, including ours, are going to have a live band. So it's going to be a good time. With that in mind, I had recently met a girl from Cedar Crest College. It was an all-girls school about 15 miles west. And I call her up, and I invite her to come the next Saturday for the football game and the party. Everything seems fine. The next day, one of my closest fraternity brothers, Neil Donovan, comes in. "Hey, Swampy," he says. Well, Marshman, Marshy, Swampy. That was my nickname. He says, "Hey, listen, I got 2 girls coming down from the University of Massachusetts." So, well, I worked with them on the Cape, and I kind of like one of them, and she's bringing her friend who I also work on the Cape, Ruthie, and I want you to be her date. And I said, "Neil, I already have a date." And I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. For the next 5 days, he conducts a campaign. And the campaign is, well, a fraternity brother would do more for a fraternity brother than a real brother. And if you were floundering in the water, I would go out there and I would bring you in, take you out of a burning car. Ladies and gentlemen, it got so bad that the final straw was, and if you were lying in a hospital on your deathbed and they said you needed a kidney, I would donate one. And I go, "Oh, Neil, body parts?" He wore me out. So Thursday night, I called the girl from Cedar Crest. And I said, I'm sorry, something's happened at home. I've got to go home to New Jersey. Okay, so Friday afternoon, the girls had gotten a ride from Amherst to New York, and then they took the train out to Easton. I'm a little nervous and a little apprehensive. I've been on a couple of blind dates before, but never one from a girl, a senior, coming from 4 states away to Easton. So they get off the train, and I see Ruthie, kind of cute, short brown hair, walks toward me, big smile, gets close, hazel eyes, sticks out her hand and say, "Hi, I'm Ruthie." Well, I said, "Hi, I'm Bruce, and hopefully we're going to have a great time." So Friday night, we get to know each other. We go back to the fraternity. A lot of the brothers are there. Some of them have their dates, and we learn about each other. Saturday's the big day. They were staying in a house about 2 blocks off campus. So we pick them up. Neil and I take them to breakfast. They tour the campus. We go to the football game. Lafayette wins. And then I find out Ruthie says she'd never been to a football game at Amherst. And then we get ready for the party. That's going to be the highlight of our day. So we arrive around 8:30. And we walk in, and the band is playing. 3 guitars and a drummer. They were up from Philadelphia. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to smell stuff. Well, a lot of people smoked in those days. And the expended smoke would kind of rise up to the ceiling. And they had no exhaust system or anything like that. You could see a hazy situation up there. Complement that with the smell of stale beer, a little body odor, and that's the milieu you're coming into. Well, we go out to dance, and I'll never forget it. The first song they played was the immortal Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs singing their hit, "Stay," and it was a big hit in the summer. Well, it was such a big hit, everybody in the place starts singing the song. Well, some of them had a little too much to drink, something like this. You know, the closest thing would be like the 7th inning at Fenway with Sweet Caroline, except they were better. And I kind of said to myself, well, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir doesn't have to worry about this outfit at all. So about half an hour later, we're out dancing. Now, it wasn't a slow dance where you're holding the girl. You know, it was one of these things, you're dancing around and you're about 2 feet apart. And I noticed Ruthie is kind of, has a quizzical look on her face and is looking over my right shoulder. And just before I turn to see what she's looking at, there's a tap on my shoulder. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's the girl from Cedar Crest, right? Wrong. I turned around and I'm face to face with her roommate. Oh, God. Now what am I going to do? Well, a couple of things come to mind. My days at the Cedar Crest campus had ended. I mean, they would draw and quarter me, oil and tar and oil me, whatever it was, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But then I say, Ruthie hasn't said a word. And I say, look, I have to tell her the story. So we sit down and I go through the whole story, up and including the, phone call to Cedar Crest on Thursday saying that I was going to leave. And I'm saying, look, we're having a good time, and I don't want this to ruin us. It's only about 9:30. And I said, come on, let's enjoy the rest of the evening. Let's go see 3 or 4 of the other bands and the other fraternities, and have a good time. So she says, okay. So we go to 3 of the they're kind of in the same area where we are, the fraternity houses, and we listen to their music. Ours was better. It gets to be midnight, and Ruthie laughs. I said, what's going on? She says, if I was back at UMass, I'd have to be back at my sorority by midnight. I said, well, thank God you're at an all-male school in Pennsylvania, because we don't follow that. At 2 o'clock, I got her home. Took her up to the thing, said, thank you very much, Ruthie, I had a wonderful time. Gave her a big hug, and I got my first kiss. The next day, I'm thinking, before I go pick her up, to go to breakfast and down to the train to work her way back to Amherst. I really had a good time with this girl. I'd like to see her again. Ooh, in 3 weeks we have our big interfraternity weekend with a big dressy dance on Saturday, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I gotta come up with something a little bit clever to kind of pull this off. So we're sitting at breakfast and I said, if we have another date, it's going to be our first date, because this was a blind date. I thought that was kind of cute. And then I said, please, I said, can you come down in 3 weeks for our big interfraternity weekend? And she said she would. So she came down, and we had a wonderful time. She invites me up to UMass 2 weeks later. And I jokingly said, do you have to be back at midnight? She said, sure. One thing I forgot to mention was that when she went to the train, and I gave her another hug, and I got my second kiss. And this is the thing that I will never forget. She took 2 steps toward the train. She turned back to me and said, I'm not going to get a Thursday night phone call, am I? Honest to God. And I blurred out, no, not ever. And Neil Donovan's, and then they go onto the train. Neil Donovan's standing there, laughing as you know what of. See, I told you you'd like the girl, all this stuff, you made me work so hard, blah, blah, blah. So, when I'm coming back from my weekend at UMass, it's a 4-hour trip. I spent the whole 4 hours thinking back little vignettes that we had on our first 3 weekends together. 3 weekends together over 7 weeks. And I went back to the fraternity house, and I told my roommate, I think I'm smitten. I really like this girl. And I looked up and I said, oh God, let her pick me. And she did. Now fast forward to 2026. On June 16th, Ruthie and I will celebrate our 64th anniversary. And on the 4th of July, we will celebrate our 60th anniversary of coming to Scituate. And I can tell you one thing, that on the 16th of June, I will sit down and I will lean back and I will remember, hey Swampy, I'm bringing these 2 girls down from University of Massachusetts. And then I'm going to smile. Thank you very much.
so much, Bruce. Great stories so far. We are now at our intermission. We'd love to announce that we have some swag for sale. This is the 10th anniversary Founders Edition hat. Plenty of them out in the lobby. We hope you purchase and support SEF. We also have a SEF tote bag. And these are going to be the in thing. So get them while they last. We have limited supplies in the lobby. So enjoy the intermission, and we'll see you back next time.
I hope you enjoyed the first half of the show. Before we get going on the next 4 storytellers, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a bit about the reason we're here tonight. The funds we raise tonight will be used exclusively to support the next round of grants. Grant application season is right now. We welcome applications from Scituate teachers and school administrators, PTOs, and local nonprofits. New this year, we're also providing a student application for Scituate high school students. The grant application window is open now through March 31st. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit our website, ScituateEducationFoundation.org, or attend the grant application info session this coming Tuesday, March 3rd at 3:45 at the Scituate High School Library. If you're involved in a program or organization that could use funding for an exciting new initiative, we encourage you to apply. With that, please sit back, enjoy, and let's have Ryan maybe come back out to introduce our next storyteller.
Welcome back, everyone. We have the pleasure of introducing our next storyteller, Kathy Kang. Kathy Kang has lived in Scituate for 16 years. She and her husband, Richard, have 2 children. Grace, who is a student at Gates Middle School, and Noah, who is a student at Scituate High School. Her husband, Richard, is also at the high school. He is a social studies teacher. Kathy is a music therapist and works at Hatherley Elementary School, as well as local elementary schools in the area. Selfless people and teamwork, the ocean and woods, and the story and song inspire her to help make the world a better place.
That's my mom! I have an embarrassing secret. I grew up in New Jersey. This is the part where you all say, "What exit?" 7A down the shore. There is nothing like the Jersey Shore. Now, don't get me wrong. I love these rocky, picturesque New England beaches, but I really miss the long, flat ones and the epic waves. So I had some high hopes for Coast Guard Beach on the Cape. It's right about here. The location on the ocean side makes for some interesting surf conditions. Last summer, my teen Noah and I were coming home from Provincetown, and I wanted to stop at Coast Guard Beach. But Noah was not in the mood. It's too hot. My skin will get salty. My hair will get messed up. Fine. Stay in the parking lot. I will be quick. Coast Guard Beach was phenomenal that day. High tide, not a cloud in the sky, lots of sunbathers, not that many people in the water. I was giddy. I put my bag down and I start to wade in, and the lifeguard says, "Miss, you might want to move your bag so it doesn't get wet. You can put it behind my chair." And I think, that's so nice. So I put my bag behind his chair and I say, "Thanks, I'm only going in for a minute." And he says, "A lot can happen in a minute." So I wade in, and immediately a humongous wave knocks me down. Next thing I know, I am being pulled out to sea, thrown on the shore, out, back, out, back. This is what we call the washing machine. Now, being a Jersey girl, I am familiar with the washing machine. All I needed to do was get my foot in. Problem was, I didn't know which way was up. I was in a serious spin cycle. Suddenly, someone grabs me, pulls me out of the water, and says, "I've got you." It was the lifeguard. Now, a normal person would be relieved and grateful. I was mortified. Not just because I'm a Jersey girl, but because for 24 years, I was in the Coast Guard. I served on ships. We pulled people out of the ocean, put them on solid ground, and went back to work. I was driven my whole life to be a strong woman, independent, fearless. The words "damsel in distress" make me throw up a little. He asks me if I'm okay, and of course I say I am. But it took me some time for the world to stop spinning, enough so that I could walk. When I get back to the bathhouse, I notice that there was blood streaming down my legs because I had been sandblasted. I take my towel, I cover myself up really quickly because God forbid somebody notice and ask me if I'm okay. I get back to the parking lot and Noah's on their headphones. They take them off and go, "That wasn't very quick." I just stare at them and they said, "What?" "I had to get rescued out of the water." Noah bursts out laughing. "You!" I said, "I'm not sure I'm ready to laugh about this yet." It took me 2 days to stop spinning because I had a mild concussion. I spent every waking moment replaying that incident over and over again because I believe there is a lesson in everything that happens to us. Boy, did I learn my lesson. So 3 days after that fateful moment, my husband Richard and I picked up our daughter Grace from camp on the Cape. We took a detour on the way home so I could go back to Coast Guard Beach and give the lifeguard a thank you card. Because, you know, that would make us even. To my delight, he was sitting in the very same chair. I go walking over, look up at him, and I say, "Hi, I'm Kathy. What's your name?" From behind his risky business sunglasses, he says, "Mac." Now, Mac was no high school string bean. He was a man. Muscles, colorful tattoos, a winning smile. The sun was shining behind his head like a halo. I heard an angelic choir. You know that movie, Moana? He was like the demigod Maui, only Caucasian. He looks at me and he says, "I helped pull you out of the water the other day." "Yes, you did. And I brought you a thank you card." He reaches down, takes it, and says, "Oh, I appreciate you." "I appreciate you. I put this in the card, but I used to be in the Coast Guard. And that was my first time here at Coast Guard Beach. Never could I ever imagine that I would be the one needing to be rescued." That was incredibly humbling. Of course, Mac was the one being incredibly humble. I introduced Richard and Grace to him, thanked him again, and we went on our way. As I was leaving, I overheard another lifeguard say, "Just another day on the job." Think about that. It's just what they do. Lifeguards, other first responders, military members, hospital workers, social workers, teachers, anyone who helps strangers in need. No matter what they've done, what they believe, where they come from, what they look like, and they do it with zero expectation of anything in return. That is heroism. I get overwhelmed just thinking about it. And anyone can be a hero in their own way. I used to have an embarrassing secret. I was a career Coast Guard officer, and I got rescued at Coast Guard Beach. But I'm not embarrassed anymore. I'm in awe. My world got flipped upside down that day, and here's what I learned. Life is fragile. We all need each other. There are heroes everywhere, and a lot can happen in a minute. Thank you. This story has an incredible epilogue, but it's Max to tell. And guess what? He's here tonight with his wife Meredith, but still being humble, so you're gonna have to guess where they're sitting. Let's give a round of applause.
Our next storyteller is Jim Thomas. Jim Thomas is in his 11th year as Department Chair of Fine and Performing Arts at the Scituate Public Schools, and he is completing his 33rd year as an educator. He has been a saxophonist since age 10 and has had truly amazing performances throughout the years. A passionate and prolific performer, Jim has played countless weddings and special events throughout Boston, Cape Cod, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Martha's Vineyard, and beyond. Among his more unique experiences was performing with the Barnum and Bailey Circus at the Boston Garden. Here's Jim.
Thank you. A person's true characteristics can be found in how they manage themselves in the most stressful of life situations. I remember hearing this expression when I was younger, maybe 12, 13 years old, something like that, from my mom and dad. And it made sense on a surface level, I would say. But if I'm being honest, I really didn't understand the full depth of this statement. As it turns out, many years later, I would lean on that statement in a way that I never imagined. August 26th, 2022, I heard 4 words that changed my life and my family's life moving forward. You have Parkinson's disease. I thought to myself, how could this be? I'm 53 years old. Isn't Parkinson's for people who are older? I work out at the gym 5 to 6 days a week. I eat healthy. I do all the right things. I was in disbelief. Those first few weeks and days following my diagnosis, I was numb. I did all I could to put one foot in front of the next. I did that for a bit, and then I got to the point where I was frankly pissed. I'm like, there's got to be more to this than just me existing the way that I am. And it was at that moment that that saying so many years prior came back to me and hit me squarely between the eyes. It gave me a framework to work from. I could be an example to my children, to my wife, to my family, friends, my students, colleagues. This was my moment. We talk about overcoming adversity. This is my time to take my best swing at it. I was experiencing some momentum with my thinking, and next, my thought was, I need to separate the things that I can influence with the things that I need to let go of. Exercise is critical for people with Parkinson's. It creates an atmosphere of neuroplasticity and slows the progression of the disease. I'm all in. I think it's a full-time job of mine, to be honest with you now. Nutrition, that speaks for itself. Attitude is key in everything that we do in our life. I chose positivity and hopefulness. So, beyond that, I have a beautiful family. And I would tell you, before my diagnosis, my family was incredibly close, and I'm blessed with that fact. After it, to my astonishment, we're even closer. And I'll share with you two quick stories that kind of gives you a taste of my family and how unique they are. My wife, Kristen, gets up with me every morning at 4:23 a.m. Why 4:23? Nothing special about it. I just forgot to take my finger off the alarm setting exactly. The point is, 4:23 is pretty darn early. My wife has to be at work much later. She certainly doesn't need to get up that early, but she does. She sends an unmistakable message that she's a part of a team, we're part of a team, and we're in this together. Another story, my mom and dad call me every single night, without fail, between 7 and 8. As a matter of fact, I'm kidding, they're in the audience. They call me every single night and check in. I really didn't understand what was going on in the beginning. I'm like, Mom, I just talked to you the night before, not a whole lot's changed. And she made a statement that really resonated with me. She said, it's not so much what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. I'm listening to your tone, and that tells me everything I need to know. I'm truly blessed to be part of a family like this. Around October of 2022, I learned from my mother-in-law, and I'm thankful for this fact, that there's a gym in Rockland called 110 Fitness. That gym specializes in people with Parkinson's disease. When I heard this news, I was both excited and nervous. So you see, at this point, I had not met anyone with Parkinson's, and I didn't know what to expect. So I went up there somewhat nervously. I'm sure I was quite nervous. And I met the owner and visionary behind this gym, Brett Miller. Brett has boundless energy. And it took me maybe 30 seconds to realize this wasn't just simply a job for Brett, but this was a calling. Brett somehow manages to put together a routine for us that stretches us to our limits, but also provides a safe and comforting environment. Along with Brett is Anna Dunbar, who's Director of Operations of the 110 Fitness and one of the senior instructors. She has the uncanny ability to make you feel welcome, important, listen to, and motivate you in ways that you don't think that you can be motivated. Both Brett and Anna are amazing people, and I feel lucky to be part of the 110 family. But beyond the amazing staff are the people that are members there, people who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I'm inspired every time I go to that gym by the courageous stories of each of the people as they're doing their best to push back the Parkinson's disease. There's Bob, who reminds me to just show up and good things can happen. Danny, who puts everything into her workouts and motivates me to do the same. Dave, who's a bit of a wise ass, if I'm being honest. Dave has a dry humor and wit that's amazing. I'll walk 10 steps away and realize I just got zinged. And then, of course, there's Nick. Nick's had a tough go of it with certain aspects of the disease, and I'm just amazed with his positivity and grace with which he enters and challenges his progression. I could go on and on about the amazing people that I meet and what I've learned as a result of that. I feel blessed to be part of 110 Fitness. I've done the most amazing things that I would have never done had I not been diagnosed with Parkinson's. This past year alone, I've done 2 triathlons, a 50-mile bike ride in southern Maine, A Green Beret challenge, that one I could spend a whole hour on talking about that one. That was crazy. Spartan Challenge at historic Fenway Park. And then this fall, I was appointed as an ambassador for the Davis Finney Foundation with the hope that I can give back to that worthy foundation in the same way that they've given to me. So I'm really excited about those opportunities. I've learned so much as a result of my diagnosis. And the strange thing is if I were to look at the pros and cons, the pros outweigh the cons. It's crazy, isn't it? I've met so many amazing people, and I owe so much gratitude to more people than I can tell you in 25 minutes, let alone 8, which I'm sure I'm going to go over. I'm truly grateful. My attitude towards my diagnosis these days is I have one foot firmly planted in the reality of my disease. And the other foot is firmly planted in the hope of a better tomorrow. I'm a more authentic person than I used to be. As cliche as it sounds, life is fragile. And I don't take for granted those wonderful moments that I used to just kind of let pass me by. Whether it's just a rising sun over the bay, a full moon shining on our home, I take it all in. That's the gift that I've been given. My final thing that I want to share with you is, as I look out into the audience, each of you will have faced, or is facing, or has faced, a challenge in your life, or a set of challenges, and for you, it's all unique. But what we all share in common is our attitude that we bring to our challenges. That's 100% up to us. Thank you.
Our next storyteller is Lynn Robertson Clyde. Lynn Robertson Clyde has lived here for 8 years, and she loves Scituate's natural beauty and walking to the harbor with her daughters. She also loves to travel, engage in new experiences, and watch Caroline and Grace on the basketball court. She is inspired by the women in her tribe, the nonprofits she works with, the creativity of entrepreneurs, and most of all, her big-hearted and curious girls.
To jump, but it was a public slap in the face that gave me the courage to leap. It was a Monday morning, beautiful day, and I was heading into Boston for a corporate town hall. When I arrived, it was the usual kind of humdrum, big conference room, ready for a hybrid meeting. Walk in, boring black seats, gray carpet. Along the front of the wall, there's 3 huge video screens, and I can see the tiny heads and faces of my colleagues from around the globe. And in the room, there's a lot of chit-chat, there's a buzz going around, talk of insincerity, and then everyone takes their seats. And then he starts to walk up to the podium. Expensive suit and ego on display. And he begins. And it's a bit of the usual humdrum. Strategy, yada, yada, yada. Goals, yada, 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 budget, yada, 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 and then my ears perk up. He starts talking about a new executive that we're going to be recruiting for and is going to build out a new team. We're lagging our peers. We really need to bring some new skill set in. We've got to get in the game with this. He starts describing the position. We need someone who can coordinate consistent messaging with our regulators across the globe. That's me. I do that. We need someone who can manage examinations and inspections across businesses and geographies to successful outcomes. Also me. I do that. We need someone who can deliver insights to the board and let them know where we are with things, what the regulatory sentiment is. Also me. And he goes on and on and on. Me, 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 me. sitting in that seat, desperately wanting to get out of the room. My blood is boiling, my heart is pounding, 4-letter words running through my brain on a loop. And then I notice people are starting to look at me. And I'm getting looks from friends, some whispering, "Did you know about this?" Others are confused. Some are looking at me with empathy, some with pity. Ugh. And then finally it's over. And I bolt for the exit. And I start marching towards my office, and I can feel the tears, and I can taste the salt. And I get there, and I sit down, and it all starts to hit me. The disrespect, and all the whys. Why has no one talked to me about this? Why have I poured so much of myself into a job? Why have I missed time with my family, given up my mental health, my physical health? For this? What is the point? And then I'm surrounded by love. My friends, my colleagues, people on my team. And they start reminding me, we love you, we value you, you are a great leader. And that's the pivotal moment. That's where Lynn, chapter 2, begins. I have loved my 40s, I've got a few months left. I hate the term midlife crisis, I don't believe in it. I believe in a midlife reawakening. There's something about your 40s where you have wisdom, right? You realize that life is fragile. You really start to like yourself, warts and all. And you realize, most importantly, that this is a one-shot deal. There is no do-over. You cannot come back and try it a different way. So I figure out, what am I going to do? I need to take stock. So I write down my values, I look at my life, and say, where do they not align? I value my family and friends. I had my kids so I could see them and raise them myself. I had them so that I didn't want to be so burnt out that I came home after work and couldn't enjoy them. I love personal growth. I love fun. I love laughter. I love learning new things. I love intellectual curiosity. But where was that coming from in my life? And it was really a full circle moment for me. I went to school as a social work major, and what was meant to be a tiny detour so I could afford rent in the city ended up being 25 years of my life. Other things I value are my community. I like to help people. I like to do better. I want to leave the world a place better than what I found it. And so all of that started churning. So what was I going to do? Well, at one point I was going to open an amazing salad bar in the harbor for you guys. Then I realized I had never even been a waitress. I don't want to work nights. I don't want to work weekends. So we tossed that one out. Maybe I would be a franchise owner. It could be a franchise of any kind. I used to work with kids. I was a lifeguard. I was a camp counselor. I love kids. Maybe I'll teach. Maybe I'll go back to school. And all of a sudden, the world was just full of possibilities. Anything was open to me. But what I realized as I was pondering all these things is I am a bona fide nerd. I love what I do. Risk management, regulatory compliance, fixing problems, building businesses on a strong foundation. It's a great job for a bossy older sister, by the way. So I decided I would stick with what I know. And about a year and a half ago, I opened my own consultancy. But I'm working with nonprofits. I'm working with small businesses. So I can help them deliver on their missions, help their businesses thrive, and it fills me up. It has offered me so much new energy in my life. I network with people from all across the country. I'm part of the Girl Gang, if you've heard of it, which is women South Shore entrepreneurs here right around us. My ladies at the gym, because I actually go to it now. And all these people, their curiosity has fueled my curiosity, their positive energy has fueled mine, and life has just become so much more joyful. So what I've learned from this experience, what I would encourage all of you to do, is to be bold, be brave, and always bet on yourself. Thank you.
We are now on our very last storyteller. I'm introducing Deb Littlefield. Deb Littlefield is the mother of 2 daughters she raised in Methuen. Her youngest is now in vet school, and her oldest just promoted her to grandma status. She moved to the Cape a few years ago and has spent her career working in leadership development and executive coaching. She is intent on using these superpowers for a nefarious purpose. being committed to becoming her grandson's favorite person. Not through quiet dignity, but through superior snacks and calculated gravity. She calls this her payback era.
So my mother called. She said, "Your father has died. Come home." So I headed to Logan and caught the first flight available back to small town Iowa and my childhood home to bury my father. Now my parents had been married for 54 years, and my father had been a teacher and coach for 40 of those, a middle school math teacher and a high school wrestling coach. And he had two mantras to give you a feel for him. As a teacher, he would say, you never throw a kid away. You give them a second chance, you give them a third. You don't know what they're going through. You never throw them away. As a coach, he would look at the kids who hadn't really found their people or their place, and he was worried they might fall through the cracks. And he would say, I don't know if that kid can help our team, but our team can help that kid. That was my father. So my mother said, I want this to be a celebration of life. And I thought, what? We are broken. How can we do that? I did not say that. I said, okay, Mom. So we went to the funeral home, and the funeral director, Mark, met us and took us upstairs with this endless array of casket options in every direction to pick one. And the smell of furniture polish was in the air. But before we could even look, Mark was jumping out of his skin with excitement. He said, I've got the neatest thing. It's this cool new thing, magnets. And I thought, you're a funeral director. You find joy where you can, man. You go. You go, Glen Coco. So said, show us what you got. And he said, there are these gold medallions, right? And you just put them right on the casket for the service. And then after everything's over, you can take them home as a souvenir. Okay, what do you got? And he holds one up and it says, Dad. And my mother melts. Oh, he loved being a father so much. Being a dad changed everything for him. We definitely want that. So Mark went and put it on the sample casket. And he picked up a second one and it said, Grandpa. And my mother gushed, oh, he loved being a grandfather so much. He loved seeing your kids do things, and I definitely that. So Mark just put it on the sample casket. And he picked up the third one and it said, beloved husband. And my mom said, that's a bit much, let's not get married. And as we were standing there, laughing hysterically in basically casket IKEA, I thought, wow, maybe we can do this celebration thing after all. So the funeral comes, and my mother had said, I want you to speak, and I want you to tap into the joy that was your father. He had a laugh that could be heard from a country mile. And so I got up and I told the story about when I was 13 years old, and I came home and I said, Dad, the softball coach says I need to learn to be a catcher. And he said, great, grab your glove, let's go out back. So we met in the backyard, and he comes out, he starts doing full windmill. Now he was a wrestler. If you've ever seen a wrestler try to throw a ball, this is not something you see in the wild, for a reason. But he wasn't too bad. He had a little heat on it. It was a little wild, and they were hitting the back of the garage, and it must have echoed through the whole house because my mother came flying out the back door screaming, what are you two doing? And my mother says, "Jim, you're denting the garage. I can see that from here." And he said, "Well, she's not a very good catcher." And right there, in the church with this beautiful cathedral ceiling, it was filled with laughter. And I looked out and I saw the sea of faces from my childhood. And they all had big smiles, and I know they were remembering the joy that my father always exuded. So we finish in the church, and we finish at the cemetery, and we take home our magnets. And a couple days later, I fly back out here and try to resume my life. But the sense of celebration is long gone, and it is replaced with darkness and sadness and emptiness. And if I'm honest, I felt like a kid who'd been thrown away. So, turn a few pages of the calendar, and I get a call from an old Iowa friend. And she says, "All right, you're gonna call me crazy, but you've got to call this medium." And I said, "You're right, you are crazy." Right? Because I had no spirituality, I had no religion, but I would do about anything if it could be a good story. So I said, "Give me the number." So I call the medium, and she picks up and says, "Have you lost your father?" "Oh, coming in hot." "Let's go." "Why, yes, I have." She said, "He's right here, and I've got some messages for you." "Let's go. Hit me." He says, he says your kids are on a good path. Don't worry about that. Okay. He says, your mother's grieving. It's gonna take a while. Just be patient. Okay. And now he's putting on a maroon sweatshirt that says Harvard across the front. And I'm asking him, "Why are you showing me this?" And he said, "She knows." And I did. So I told her, actually I have a contract with Harvard Business School as one of their executive coaches. And she went, "That's nice. He wants to know why you haven't told your mother." I hadn't told anyone. I didn't post it anywhere. I kept it like a secret. Because when you grow up in the Midwest, you don't say anything out loud that sounds braggadocious. You just don't. It's bad form, it's considered tacky, and it invites bad karma. So I hadn't told anyone. And in that moment I realized there's no way the medium could have had any of this information. And I also realized that I had had the contract with Harvard for 1 year, and my father had been gone for 2. And in that moment, everything changed for me because I honestly believed I was talking to my father. And all the darkness that had settled in my heart was immediately expelled and replaced with love and light. I hadn't been thrown away. He'd been there the whole time, supporting me, loving me, guiding me. I just didn't recognize it. Just because I couldn't see him didn't mean he wasn't still looking out for me. I honestly felt like I had been found or never lost at all. My takeaway from all of this is that I know in my heart that love never dies. Thank you.
This concludes our evening. We thank you for coming out and supporting the Scituate Education Foundation. Before we leave for the evening, we would like all of our storytellers, as well as Andrea, to come up to the stage for a final bow. So we have a special announcement. We would like to invite Andrea up to the microphone to share some wonderful opportunities that hopefully you have been inspired to participate in.
I'm going to time myself, 3 minutes. I have some exciting news. And the storytellers in the back that I have trained before will know this is a familiar thing. But first of all, how amazing are they? And I would like to say that they wouldn't be so amazing if it weren't for you. You have been supportive, you have been kind and thoughtful, and you've laughed in all the right places, and you make them better. If you don't have a great audience, then you don't have the tellers. You make it great. Give yourselves a nice pat on the back. So, the tellers that I have trained in the past, at the end, I always say, you know what would be great? To have a story slam at Untold, because Untold, you should tell stories, right? And then, yeah, that'd be great. And we never do anything. So I told Maria, one of the fabulous 4 of the board for SEM, and she made it work. Thank you, Maria. We have a story slam coming up, the first of maybe 2, and if you don't come, maybe 1, on April 1st at Untold at 7 to 8:30 p.m. What is a story slam? Well, I'm glad you asked. A story slam is a contest of stories. People come, they drop their name in the basket, and we may choose them, we may not, when we choose them randomly, but you tell a 5-minute story and 30 seconds to round it up on a theme. Well, it is April 1st, so you know the theme. And on April Fool's Day, you can have a story about maybe a practical joke. Maybe you're a practical joker in your family, or maybe you've had a practical joke on you, or maybe you found romance in April and you felt like a fool, or maybe there was a storm coming and it happened to be a non-storm, and you know, all the hype. And so it was sort of an April Fool's joke. It could be anything loosely on that theme. And then you, as an audience that come in, you get to vote for your favorite story. I say favorite story, not teller, because everybody's a winner that gets up. I remember in Massmouth, let me check on my time, in Massmouth that I started, many, many years ago, we gave away prizes, and we will have prizes. In Massmouth, we had a 1-week villa in Tuscany. We don't have that. But we will have some tasty prizes and maybe some possible cash, lottery tickets, and some that, you know, maybe some tasty treats from Untold. So we would love for you to come, because it is, you know, 1 and 2. If we don't have 1 and all of you, we won't have 2. So come, it's a lot of fun. I think storytelling is like a playground for adults. You get to sit in your chair, experience something you've never had before, and get to go home safely. And a story is not a story until it's told. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Andrea, on behalf of SEF, we wanted to thank you for all of your hard work with our storytellers, so thank you so very much. And let's have one more round of applause for our storytellers tonight. Especially our Greek ghosties. Drive safely, and thank you for coming out.